The world often believes that certain actions go unpunished, that some individuals are able to escape the consequences of their cruelty. Many have witnessed betrayal, deception, and the callous disregard of others, only to see the perpetrators seemingly thrive, unbothered and content. Yet, this is a profound misunderstanding of how the universe truly operates. There is a deep, unyielding principle at play, a spiritual law that ensures what is sown will ultimately be reaped. The journey through life teaches that no act, whether kind or cruel, ever truly vanishes without leaving its indelible mark on the soul of the one who commits it. For those who inflict pain, who backstab and abandon, believing they are exempt from the scales of justice, a harsh awakening awaits. The price of their cruelty is far more severe, and its payment far more inescapable than they could ever imagine. The consequences of their betrayal are not a matter of if, but when, and they arrive with an intensity that mirrors the pain they caused. The price of their cruelty is far more severe, and its payment far more inescapable than they could ever imagine. The consequences of their betrayal are not a matter of if, but when, and they arrive with an intensity that mirrors the pain they caused. Before we begin this journey, it is a blessing to know from which part of the world you are watching and at what hour of the day God has guided you to this message. Truly, it is a joy to witness how the Lord gathers hearts from every corner of the earth, uniting them in one spirit and in one truth. The ancient texts speak of a divine reckoning, a time when hidden deeds are brought to light and secret intentions are laid bare. The Bible tells us in Galatians chapter 6 verse 7, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." This is not merely a metaphor or a poetic phrase. It is a fundamental truth of existence. Every lie spoken, every trust broken, every heart wounded, creates a ripple effect that eventually circles back to its source. For the individual who chose the path of the narcissist, and for the new supply who willingly participated in the betrayal, they are now confronted with the immutable reality of this law. They believed they were superior, that their cunning would shield them from any retribution. They walked away from a genuine connection, leaving behind a trail of hurt, convinced that their new situation would bring them lasting happiness and freedom. But the universe does not forget, and the spiritual laws are never circumvented. The very peace they sought has eluded them, replaced by an unsettling disquiet. The security they craved has dissolved into instability. The respect they demanded is now replaced by a growing contempt, both from others and, more importantly, from within themselves. The torment they thought they escaped is now their constant companion. This is the unfolding of a profound justice, a process set in motion by their own hands the moment they chose to betray you. The seeds of bitterness, deceit, and abandonment they scattered are now yielding a harvest they must unwillingly gather. Consider the intricate workings of this cosmic balance. It does not operate on human timelines or according to human desires for immediate gratification. Instead, it waits, it observes, and it aligns. When the moment is ripe, when the conditions are met, the scales tip. The narcissist, in their grandiosity, imagined they could control narratives, manipulate perceptions, and forever deflect blame. The new supply, perhaps fueled by a misguided sense of victory or a desperate need for validation, joined in this destructive dance, adding their weight to the betrayal. Both believed they had secured a better future, a grander stage, a more appreciative audience. They may have even reveled in the initial illusion of success, witnessing the pain they caused and mistaking it for their own strength. But the spiritual ledger is never closed. Every entry is meticulously recorded, and every debt must eventually be paid. The initial high of their perceived victory is now fading, replaced by a growing sense of unease. The laughter they once shared now rings hollow. The promises they made to each other, built on a foundation of deceit, are beginning to crack under the weight of their shared transgressions. This is not about revenge. It is about an inevitable restoration of balance, a cosmic recalibration. What was twisted is being straightened. What was stolen is being restored. And what was hidden is being dragged into the undeniable light. The consequences they thought they had outrun are now catching up, and the momentum of their own negative actions is now propelling them towards a fate they orchestrated themselves. The journey ahead will reveal precisely how this ancient law is now manifesting in their lives, bringing them face to face with the full, unsparing price of their cruelty. They believed their betrayal would be a one-way street, a direct path to their own happiness, and a dead end for you. They could not have been more wrong. What they saw as an end for you was only a beginning for them. The beginning of a long and relentless accounting. They thought they were building a new life, but they were actually building a prison for their own souls. They thought they were moving on, but they were simply moving into a different kind of darkness, a darkness they created, and one they can never escape. The weight of their choices grows heavier with each passing day, and the silence they once used as a weapon is now being turned back on them as a form of unbearable punishment. They are alone with their thoughts, and their thoughts have become their greatest tormentor. The freedom they claimed is nothing but a facade, and the happiness they project is a fragile lie. They are beginning to feel the first drops of the storm they created for you, and it is a storm they cannot outrun. The price of cruelty is a payment that must be made, and their moment of payment has just begun. The narcissist, consumed by their own self-importance, often lives as if in a mirrored room. Every surface reflects their carefully constructed image back at them, an illusion of perfection and control. They believe they can escape any difficult truth, that their charm and manipulation will forever shield them from reality. But there is one mirror they cannot shatter, one reflection they cannot manipulate, the mirror of shame. It is a spiritual mirror held up by an unseen hand, and it shows them a truth they have spent a lifetime running from. This is their first and most brutal punishment. It does not come as a thunderclap or a public scandal, but as a quiet, relentless torment within their own soul. The mask they wore for the world is now cracking, and behind it, they see a face they do not recognize, a hollow and pathetic stare. This internal reckoning is where the downfall truly begins. It is the beginning of the end for their false reality and the awakening to a life they can no longer control. The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 28, verse 1, "The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion." The narcissist, who once prided themselves on their boldness and their ability to dominate any situation, is now living this truth in reverse. They are constantly fleeing from themselves. When they are alone, in the quiet of their own home, with no one to impress and no one to deceive, the mirror of shame appears. They replay the past in their mind. The abrupt cut-off, the cruel silence, the way they acted as if you never existed, as if your loyalty was meaningless. At the time, these actions gave them a rush of power, a sense of superiority, and an ego boost. They believed they had won. But now, those very memories return not as triumphs, but as tormentors. The mind that once plotted deception now tortures them with undeniable truths. They are no longer the charming victor. They are the cowardly betrayer. They are no longer in control. They are condemned by their own conscience. The silence they inflicted on you has now become their prison, for in that silence they cannot escape the voice of their own guilt. The very weapon they used to hurt you has been turned back on them with devastating force. Shame is a heavy chain. It clings to them when they try to rest, it follows them when they walk, and it eats away at their smiles until those smiles collapse into emptiness. The world may still see a composed and confident person, someone who posts pictures and projects an image of a perfect life. But behind closed doors, the weight of their choices presses on their chest like a stone. Every laugh they share with the new supply is tainted by a whisper inside. This is not real. Every attempt to boast is met with a silent internal verdict. You are a fraud. They once mocked you for being too emotional, too trusting, too naive. They rolled their eyes at your tears and despised your vulnerability. But now, staring into their own reflection, they would give anything to have the qualities they despised in you. Because those qualities were proof of a living heart. Those qualities were evidence of a genuine soul. And in their quest to discard you, they discarded their last chance at real human connection. The mirror of shame is relentless. It does not need a judge or a jury. It simply holds up the truth and leaves them to face it. They are haunted by the thought that you were never the problem. They were. You were never unworthy. They were ungrateful. You were never weak. They were cowardly. This spiritual punishment is not physical but psychological, and it is far more effective. You see, they betrayed you, but in doing so, they also betrayed themselves. They lost you, but in losing you, they lost the very destiny that was tied to their life. The mirror of shame is only the beginning. It is the first stage of a judgment that cannot be reversed. They cannot charm their way out of it, they cannot lie their way out of it, and they cannot blame anyone else. The face in the mirror tells the unvarnished truth, and it tells it every single day. The same silence they thought would punish you is now their greatest torment. The counterfeit relationship they thought would replace you only serves to magnify the memory of what they lost. They believed they could walk away untouched, but the mirror will not let them escape. Every day, it declares the verdict, guilty. Every night, it repeats the sentence, shame. The punishment has begun, and it is entirely of their own making. It is a slow and agonizing process of self-realization, a journey into the abyss they created for themselves, and a confrontation with the very person they have tried to run from their entire lives, their true, unmasked self. The shame clings to them like a second skin, a constant reminder of the cruelty they inflicted and the profound emptiness they now live with. Betrayal always cuts deep, but your story was not a single stab wound. It was not just one person turning against you. It was two daggers driven into the same wound at the same time. The first dagger was the narcissist who walked away. The second was the new supply who rushed in to take your place. Think about the profound weight of this shared transgression, a conspiracy of two hearts against one. The narcissist once held your loyalty, your trust, and access to your heart. You gave them pieces of yourself that no one else had, and in return, they treated that treasure like trash. They listened to lies, they chose deceit over truth, and they traded a genuine connection for fleeting convenience. They did not just leave. They abandoned. They did not just betray. they discarded. That was the first dagger, a blade forged in selfishness, but betrayal is far heavier when it is partnered. The new supply was not an innocent bystander, a pawn in a game they did not understand. They stepped into the story not as a victim, but as a willing participant and a co-conspirator. The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 13 verse 20, "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." The new supply chose to be a companion to the companion to the tomb, Narcissist's folly and wickedness. They did not just watch. They actively participated. They fueled the narcissist's ego, entertained the lies, and celebrated your pain as if it were their prize. They smiled when you cried, they rejoiced when you were cast aside, and they whispered, "See, you are nothing. You have been replaced." That was the second dagger, a blade sharpened by a heart of envy and malice. And together, those two blades cut deeper than words can describe. They wanted to inflict a wound so painful it would destroy you. In the natural world, a wound like that should have. Most people would have crumbled, collapsing under the combined weight of such a brutal and coordinated attack. They would have lashed out, screamed, fought back, or sought revenge. But you did not. You carried the wound in silence. You chose dignity over retaliation. You allowed the narcissist and the new supply to believe they had won, while you walked forward with integrity in your spirit and tears in your eyes. That silence became your testimony. That dignity became your evidence. That restraint became the very reason that a higher power rose up on your behalf. Because make no mistake, the unseen was watching. The whispers in the dark were recorded in the light. The laughter at your expense was heard in heaven's court. And now, the circle has turned. The two daggers they drove into your back have swung around, and they are now piercing their own lives. Look at them. The narcissists thought they had upgraded, that leaving you proved their power. But every morning they wake up with a profound emptiness. Every night they fall asleep with a consuming shame. The mirror condemns them. Their soul betrays them, and the new supply, who thought they had stolen a prize, now realizes they have inherited a curse. They are learning the hard way that a relationship built on betrayal cannot produce blessing. It can only produce chaos, distrust, and decay. This is the harsh punishment they now face. The lies they told about you are now being told about them. The betrayal they celebrated is now the betrayal they fear. The instability they forced upon you is now the instability that defines their connection. They wanted you to bleed, but now they are the ones bleeding. They wanted you to look like a fool, but now they are the ones exposed. This is not for you to witness with glee, but to understand the precision of justice. You did not have to swing the sword. You did not have to fight for your own honor. A higher power took the case. The daggers have returned to their owners. What was meant for your harm has become their punishment. What they did to break you has broken them instead. The very act of their shared betrayal, which they saw as a triumph, is now the inescapable chain that binds them together in a cycle of mutual distrust and unhappiness. They are both constantly on guard, knowing that if one could betray you, they could easily betray the other. The two daggers have become their own torment, a constant reminder of the hollow foundation of their life together. There are betrayals that burn slowly, giving you time to sense what is coming. But then there are betrayals that strike like a sudden storm, swift and merciless, leaving you breathless and disoriented. This is what you endured. The narcissist did not give you space to prepare. They did not offer closure, an explanation, or even a word of respect. One moment, you were in their life, giving your heart, your time, and your loyalty. The next moment, you were erased, as if you had never existed at all. This kind of ending is not only painful, it is deeply humiliating. Abandonment is cruel, but sudden abandonment, ghosting, cutting off all communication without warning is humiliation in its purest form. It forces the heart to ask questions it cannot answer. Was I truly worth so little? Did my love mean nothing? Did I misread everything? Was I only a placeholder until someone better came along? This is the unique cruelty of the abrupt cutoff. It takes the history you shared and the moments you invested and tosses them aside as if they were dust. It leaves a wound that festers not just with grief, but with profound shame. The Bible tells us in Psalms chapter 55 verse 21, "His speech was smoother than butter, yet war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords." The narcissist believed their silence was their power. They thought that by leaving you without a word, they were proving their control and dominance. They believed that by refusing closure, they were displaying strength. To them, it was a move on a chessboard, a game of ego. But a higher authority sees it for what it truly is: cowardice and weakness. Only the weak discard what is holy as if it were worthless. Only cowards run from confrontation without a word. Only the guilty rely on silence to cover their sins. The narcissist thought their silence would silence you, but a divine hand turned that silence into evidence against them. The very way they treated you has now been written into a spiritual record as proof of their character and the sickness of their soul. It is a judgment that they can never erase, a permanent mark on their spiritual ledger. This is where the spiritual consequence begins to operate with terrifying precision. The very humiliation they placed on you has now become the humiliation they endure. The same suddenness with which they cut you off is the same suddenness with which doors are now being slammed shut in their own lives. They will find that opportunities vanish without explanation, relationships end without a reason, and support systems crumble without a word. The same silence they gave you is the silence they now endure when they call out for help and no one answers. The same confusion they left you in is now the confusion that plagues them daily. They made you feel small. Now they are the ones diminished. They left you with shame. Now shame clings to their every step. They cut you off without warning. Now opportunities are cut off from them without explanation. The circle has turned and the punishment matches the crime. When they discarded you, they thought you were disposable. But now they are the ones being treated as disposable by people they once trusted. When they humiliated you, they believed your head would hang low forever. But now it is they who cannot lift their heads without the weight of their choices pressing down in trying to erase you. They erased themselves. By cutting you off so abruptly, they severed their own blessing. By humiliating you, they wrote humiliation into their own destiny. You see, you were not just another person. You were a divine assignment, a sacred gift, a door to something greater. In discarding you, they discarded the very best chance they had at peace and wholeness. So while you carried humiliation for a season, that season has passed. Theirs is ongoing. While you wept in silence for a time, your silence has become your testimony, and theirs has become their torment. The abrupt cutoff was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of their unraveling. Every time they remember the way they left you, they feel the sting of humiliation in their own soul. This is not coincidence. This is justice. It is a powerful reminder that there is a cosmic balance to all things, and that no one, no matter how clever or cruel, can escape the consequences of their actions. The torment they feel is a direct reflection of the pain they caused, and it is a punishment they can never outrun. It is a fate they sealed with their own hands. There is a moment when a higher power draws a line, a moment when grace has been extended as far as it can go, and then, suddenly, it stops. This is what can be called the divine cutoff, and it is exactly what the narcissist and the new supply are now facing. For a period of time, they were given space to change, space to choose truth over lies, and space to see the error of their ways. Grace lingered and mercy extended its hand, giving them ample opportunity to repent and to turn back. But when they ignored that mercy, when they trampled over that grace, when they mistook patience for permission, the cutoff arrived. And when a divine power cuts something off, it is final and it is irreversible. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 11 verse 22, "Note then the kindness and the severity of God, severity toward those who have fallen, but God's kindness to you, provided you continue in His kindness." This passage reveals a profound truth. There is both a kindness that leads to patience and a severity that brings an end to rebellion and sustained cruelty. The narcissist, in their arrogance, believed they had endless chances to play their games. They thought they could lie, manipulate, and betray without consequence. The new supply, in their own misplaced confidence, thought they could build their future on the ruin of another's past. They were both convinced that their actions would go unpunished. But heaven was watching the clock. When the time expired, judgment began. This is why everything for them seems to be crumbling at once. The divine cutoff is not gradual. It is sudden, swift, and complete. One moment they believe they are in control, and the next, everything unravels. Opportunities vanish without reason. Doors close without explanation. Relationships sour and fall apart. Peace disappears from their lives entirely. They cannot understand it, because in their pride, they thought they were exempt from the rules that govern the rest of humanity. But grace has limits, and mercy has boundaries. When those boundaries are crossed, the cutoff arrives like a sword, dividing their past from their future, their false reality from the harsh truth. Think about the precision of this justice. They cut you off abruptly, and now a higher power has cut off their access to blessing. They left you without closure, and now they are left without answers. They turned their back on a sacred gift, and now their plans are being turned to dust. This is not cruelty. It is the exact measure of what they dealt out, now reflected back into their own lives. The narcissist feels it in the silence of their unanswered prayers and in the doors that refuse to open. The new supply feels it in the emptiness of a connection that no longer satisfies and in the growing fear that their new life is a sham. They both feel it in the deep sense that something has shifted, something has closed, something is missing, and no matter what they try, they cannot get it back. That is the divine cutoff, and once it happens, no amount of begging, manipulation, or pretense can reverse it. The clock does not rewind. The chapter does not reopen. The season of grace has ended, and the season of justice has begun. This is why you must not envy them, even if it appears for a moment that they are thriving. Because when heaven closes a door, no one can open it. When a divine decree is made, it cannot be undone. The beauty of this is that the divine cutoff for them is a divine release for you. The same moment a higher power said enough to their games was the very moment it said now to your healing and restoration. The same cutoff that sealed their fate opened your path. The same justice that silenced them gave you freedom. Their abrupt betrayal became their judgment, but your abrupt ending became your beginning. Their humiliation became their prison, but your humiliation became your testimony. What seemed like the end of your world was actually the doorway to your new life. So do not mourn what was lost. Do not crave what has been cut away. If heaven ended it, it was never your future. It was a temporary assignment that has now been completed. And in its completion, you are free. The cutoff may have wounded you for a season, but it has liberated you for eternity. There is a reason the ancient saying still echoes across centuries. There is no rest for the wicked. And the narcissist, together with the new supply, is living proof of that truth right now. When they walked away, they believed peace would follow them. They thought discarding you would open the door to freedom, and that replacing you would erase the weight of what they did. They were convinced that betraying you in silence meant they would never have to face the consequences. But instead of peace, they found torment. Instead of freedom, they found chains. Instead of rest, they found relentless unrest. This is a law of spiritual physics that cannot be broken. You cannot build peace on betrayal. You cannot build rest on cruelty, and you cannot build a future on a lie. What begins in deception always ends in destruction. What begins with backstabbing always circles back as a self-inflicted wound. The Bible says in Isaiah chapter 57 verse 20 and 21, "But the wicked are like the tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up mire and dirt. There is no peace, says my God, for the wicked." This is not a threat. It is a profound observation of a spiritual reality that governs all of creation. Look at them now. Sleep no longer comforts them. Night after night, their minds are restless, a constant storm of guilt and regret. They toss and turn, haunted by the very memories they tried to bury. Every cruel word, every selfish choice, every manipulative scheme replays in their thoughts. They wake up in cold sweats, staring at the ceiling, afraid of their own conscience. The silence that once tormented you now torments them. The questions that once plagued you now plague their own minds. Why did I do it? How did I lose something so precious? What if everyone sees who I really am? This is the punishment of the wicked, the inability to escape themselves. They may still smile in public, but inside, they are at war. They may still laugh with the new supply, but their laughter is hollow. The mirror betrays them every time. The peace they project is a fragile lie, and the effort to maintain it is exhausting them to their very core, and the new supply is not exempt from this torment. When you step into a relationship built on lies and betrayal, you inherit the curse of that betrayal. The same unrest that stalks the narcissist now stalks the one who joined in their schemes. The chaos they thought would fall on you is now the chaos that rules their connection. Suspicion grows, distrust festers, and arguments erupt over the smallest things. Their house is not a home. It is a battlefield. Their bed is not a place of comfort. It is a place of restless silence. They mocked your tears, but now their own tears fall in secret. They laughed at your confusion, but now they live in a state of perpetual confusion. They reveled in your sleepless nights, but now they cannot close their eyes without dread. This is divine irony, justice unfolding in real time. The very torment they planned for you has been delivered back to them, multiplied. This is only the beginning. The absence of rest is the first stage of a deeper judgment. Without rest, nothing else can prosper. They may chase money, but it slips through their fingers. They may chase recognition, but it turns to ridicule. They may chase satisfaction, but it dissolves into emptiness. Without the peace of a clear conscience, life becomes a cycle of exhaustion and frustration, and that is exactly where they are trapped. They believed you would never recover, that you would spend your nights weeping while they enjoyed peace. But here you are, rising, healed, walking in a quiet strength. And there they are, wide awake in the middle of the night, unable to close their eyes because of the torment inside. You don't need revenge. You don't need to plot their downfall. Justice is already in motion. The sleepless nights they gave you have returned to them multiplied. The rest they stole from you has been restored to you in peace. They walk in torment, and you walk in freedom. What they sowed, they are now reaping, and the evidence of their betrayal is now their sentence. There is no rest for the wicked, not in their mind, not in their heart, and not in their home. And until they face the truth of what they did, their torment will not cease. It is a powerful reminder that every choice has a consequence, and some consequences are eternal. A weight follows every act of betrayal. It does not arrive immediately, but when it comes, it clings to the betrayer like a shadow that can never be outrun. This is the haunting of consequences, and the narcissist and the new supply are now learning that you cannot escape what you have sown. For a while, they convinced themselves they had escaped. They laughed in secret, believing the story was finished. They told themselves, it's over. They will never recover, and we will never face the price. But consequences have a way of waiting until the noise dies down, until the mask grows heavy, and until the pretense becomes unbearable. Then, without warning, they appear in dreams, in memories, and in sudden moments of silence. The Bible tells us in Numbers chapter 32, verse 23, "Be sure your sin will find you out." This is not a threat, but a spiritual guarantee. What is hidden in the dark will always be brought into the light. The narcissist cannot rest because their conscience has become their courtroom. Night after night, they replay the day they cut you off. The words they never spoke echo louder than the words they did. The lies they believed now gnaw at their mind. The image of your face, the one they discarded so cheaply, returns again and again. They cannot escape it. They cannot silence it. They cannot explain it away. The very truth they buried has resurrected, and it demands their attention. And the new supply is haunted too, because they stepped into something they thought was a victory, but it has become a curse. They know, deep down, how the relationship began. They know it was birthed in betrayal, and every time they look at the narcissist, a question rises. If they betrayed once, will they betray again? If they discarded someone before me, will they discard me too? Suspicion eats away at their peace. Paranoia becomes their constant companion. Even in laughter, they are haunted by doubt. This is divine irony. The very actions they thought would free them have chained them. The very betrayal they celebrated has become the ghost that follows them everywhere, Consequences are not just events that happen around them. Consequences have moved into their souls. They are haunted in their finances with sudden losses and unexplained burdens. They are haunted in their relationships where trust dissolves and arguments erupt. They are haunted in their sleep with nightmares chasing them and restless nights multiplying. They are haunted even in their waking hours by guilt, by shame, and by the undeniable knowledge that they destroyed something sacred. Betrayal never leaves quietly. It always returns and it always speaks. And in this case, the consequences are loud. A higher power has allowed their own choices to become their tormentors. They cannot point fingers anymore. They cannot blame anyone else. The haunting is within them, and there is no escape. This haunting will not cease quickly, because the purpose of divine justice is not simply to punish, but to reveal. They must see themselves as they truly are. They must feel the weight of the pain they caused. They must confront the reality that you were never the problem, they were. You were never unworthy, they were ungrateful. You were never weak, they were cowardly. And until they face that truth, the haunting will remain. The silence they forced on you has become the silence of their own nights. The humiliation they placed on you has become the shame they carry in their own reflection. The betrayal they committed has become the ghost that walks beside them, whispering in every quiet moment, "You will not escape. You will remember." And you, the one they tried to erase, no longer carry the haunting. It has been lifted from you and transferred back to where it belongs. Their choices, their actions, their betrayal. The shadow that once followed you has now been lifted, and it is now pursuing them. The fear they tried to instill in you is now the fear that paralyzes them. Their past has become a relentless stalker, and every time they think they are free, it reappears, a constant and unforgiving reminder of the damage they caused. This haunting is their perpetual sentence, a life lived in the company of their own ghosts, and there is no exorcism for a soul that has willingly embraced evil. At the end of every story of betrayal, there is always a final verdict. The truth for the narcissist and the new supply is this: their greatest punishment is not merely the humiliation, not the restlessness, and not the haunting consequences. Their greatest punishment is that they have lost destiny itself. They threw away a profound opportunity, a life of blessing, peace, and legacy. The narcissist had in their hands a divine partnership, a soul chosen for them. The Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 2 verse 18, "The Lord God said, 'It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him.'" You were positioned in their path not by accident, but by design. You were a door to something greater, a sacred gift. And yet, blinded by arrogance and a desperate need for superficial validation, they slammed that door shut. They believed they were walking toward freedom, but in reality, they were walking away from the very future that had been written for them. That loss is permanent. That loss is irreversible. No amount of begging or running back can reopen a door that was closed by a higher authority. And the new supply, who thought they had won a prize, has now discovered they have inherited a curse. When you build your joy on another person's pain, that joy will always rot into bitterness. When you build your victory on betrayal, that victory will never stand. They did not just take your place. They took on the very judgment meant for the narcissist. They entered into a story of decay, and now they are reaping the consequences of seeds they never should have planted. This is the ultimate loss of destiny, to hold something holy and to despise it, to be offered a blessing and to throw it away for something counterfeit, to be given a chance at peace and to trade it for chaos. The narcissist and the new supply now walk in a future they cannot escape, a future marked not by light, but by shadow. They have chosen their path, and their path has led them into ruin. But here is where the story shifts for you. While they are losing their destiny, you are being vindicated. Every tear you cried has become a seed of elevation. Every humiliation you endured has become a testimony of your endurance. Every wound you carried silently has become proof that heaven fights for you. The tables have turned. Vindication does not always come with trumpets or announcements. Sometimes it comes quietly in the peace you now carry, in the strength you now walk in, and in the way doors open for you that remained shut for them. Sometimes it comes in the way your dignity speaks louder than their lies. It comes in the way you are raised higher while they sink deeper. The beauty of it is that you do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to explain yourself. You do not need to fight for yourself. The verdict has already been given. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 8 verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Your betrayal has become your evidence. Their downfall has become your vindication. Their punishment has become your platform. As the circle of consequences closes, understand what has truly happened. They lost what they could never regain, destiny itself. And you have gained what no one can take away, vindication in the eyes of a higher power. They are bound by shame, but you are crowned with honor. They are haunted by their past, but you are carried into your future. They are silenced, but your voice will rise stronger than ever. They made the choice to trade a future of peace for a moment of power. They chose a counterfeit happiness over a genuine blessing. That choice has sealed their fate, and in that loss, you have found your ultimate gain. Their loss of destiny is not a punishment for your benefit, but a natural consequence of their own choices. It is the final, undeniable proof that the sacred cannot be mocked and that a genuine heart holds a value far greater than any lie or fleeting pleasure. Their downfall is a testament to your worth, a silent but powerful declaration that you were a treasure they did not deserve. The unfolding of a great injustice often looks like a victory for the wicked in its initial stages. The narcissist and the new supply, at first, may have appeared to have won. They looked happy, their lives seemed to be moving forward, and they may have even gloated in their new arrangement. This is a common illusion, a trick of the enemy to make the righteous question the very existence of justice. But what the world sees and what is happening in the spiritual realm are often two entirely different realities. The Bible says in Psalms chapter 73 verse 3, "For I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." The psalmist admits to this initial confusion, to the pain of seeing wrongdoers thrive. But the same chapter reveals the final destination of that path. A higher power knows the end from the beginning, and while they may have appeared to be rising, they were, in fact, on a path to a quiet, undeniable downfall. This is the great paradox of this moment. While they are crumbling, you are being lifted up and made whole. The process of your elevation began the moment their betrayal was complete. Every tear you shed was not a sign of weakness, but a seed planted in sacred ground. The pain you endured was not for nothing. It was a purification process, a refining fire that burned away what was not meant for your future. While they were busy building a house of cards on a foundation of deceit, you were being rebuilt on a rock. You were not just surviving the betrayal. You were being prepared for a purpose far greater than the one you left behind. The peace you now possess is a direct result of the storm you weathered. The strength you now carry is a monument to the integrity you maintained. As they were spiraling downward, you were quietly, profoundly moving upward. The silence of your dignity spoke louder than their lies. The wisdom you gained from their cruelty has become a shield for your future. You were not fighting, you were ascending. You see, a higher authority does not operate on a system of immediate revenge, but of ultimate justice. The narcissist believed they had outsmarted the system. The new supply believed they had a free pass to their new life. They thought they had left you behind in the dust. But they were wrong. The path you are on is now wide and open, while theirs is narrowing with every step. The opportunities that are coming to you, the genuine connections that are forming around you, the clarity and peace that fill your days are all evidence of this quiet elevation. It is not an accident. It is the natural consequence of your faithful heart and your refusal to sink to their level. You did not have to fight for justice because justice was fighting for you. They may still be projecting a picture of perfection, but you have the living reality of peace. You don't need to see their suffering to know it's happening. You can feel it in your own spiritual liberation. Your freedom is their punishment. Your peace is their torment. Their downfall is happening in unseen ways, in the sleepless nights, in the hollow laughter, in the constant fear of being exposed. But your elevation is also happening in unseen ways, in the deep rest you now experience, in the genuine joy that surprises you, and in the profound knowing that your life is moving in the right direction. While they are losing control, you are gaining a mastery over your own destiny. What they did to break you has been used to build you stronger than ever before. Your wholeness is proof of their brokenness, and your quiet elevation is the most powerful testament to their downfall. The more they try to cling to a false reality, the deeper they sink into their own torment. And the more you let go and move forward, the higher you are lifted into a life of authentic joy and purpose. Your elevation is not a coincidence. It is the divine response to their cruelty. You are living the evidence that a heart of integrity will always be raised up, while a heart of deceit will always be brought low. The narcissist and the new supply believed they had created a new reality for themselves, one where they were free from the burden of their past. But a divine truth is this: what you sow, you must also reap. They sowed seeds of betrayal, deceit, and cruelty, and now the circle is turning back on them. The very pain they inflicted is now circling back to their own lives with an undeniable force. This is not about a vengeful universe. It is about a profound spiritual law that cannot be broken. The Bible tells us in Job chapter 4 verse 8, "As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. They plowed a field of iniquity, and they are now standing in a harvest of their own making." Think back to the moment of betrayal. They made a mockery of your loyalty, and now they are surrounded by people who cannot be trusted. They will constantly be looking over their shoulders, wondering if their new friends or partners are secretly plotting against them. The new supply, who laughed at your tears, now finds themselves weeping in secret over the very person they thought they had won. They are discovering that the narcissist is a bottomless pit, a person who can never be truly satisfied, and they are learning firsthand the torment you once endured. The narcissist, who created a story of lies to justify their actions, is now trapped in a web of their own deceit. Every lie they tell creates more lies, and the foundation of their new life is crumbling under the weight of it all. They believed they could discard you without consequence, but they are now being discarded by others, by opportunities, and by peace itself. The very isolation they forced on you is now their greatest torment. The quiet strength you found in your solitude is the very peace they are desperate to find, and can never reach. The circle of karma turns with astonishing precision. The same suddenness with which they cut you off is the same suddenness with which their opportunities and blessings are now disappearing. The very public humiliation they sought for you is now a private shame they carry in their own souls. You do not have to lift a finger to see this justice unfold. You can feel it in the quiet, knowing that your tears were not in vain. You can see it in the way that you are being elevated while they are being brought low. They are living a consequence they do not understand, an inescapable reality. Their relationship, which was meant to be a grand victory, is now nothing more than a shared prison. They are tied to one another not by love, but by the burden of their shared transgression. They may have had a moment of triumph, but that moment is now over, replaced by a relentless torment that they cannot escape. This is the great and humbling lesson of their downfall. You cannot escape a higher justice. You cannot build a future on a lie and expect it to stand. You cannot hurt a faithful heart and believe there will be no price to pay. The circle has turned. The one who sowed the wind is now reaping the whirlwind. The person who planted seeds of destruction is now living in a field of ruin. You do not have to fight for your vindication because it is already happening. You do not have to wish for their downfall because it is already here. You do not have to seek revenge because justice is already being served. They are now facing the undeniable reality that the pain they caused you has simply returned to them, multiplied. And that is the most powerful and complete form of justice. The very foundation of their new life is a mirror of their past betrayal, and it is a mirror that shows them the truth every single day without fail. Their torment is a direct and proportional consequence of their actions, and it will not cease until they have fully reaped the bitter harvest they sowed. A relationship built on lies is a house built on sand. It may stand for a moment, appearing solid and beautiful, a testament to what the world believes is happiness and success. But the moment a storm arrives, the entire structure will collapse. This is the fate of the narcissist and their new supply. Their union was not founded on trust, on mutual respect, or on genuine affection. It was founded on a shared act of betrayal against an innocent person, a foundation of malice and deceit. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 7 verse 26 and 27, "And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." This is a spiritual law that applies not just to physical homes, but to every aspect of a life, and every relationship that is not built on a true and solid foundation. They began their story with a lie that you were the problem, the lie that they were justified in their actions, the lie that what they were doing was right. The new supply embraced the narcissist's lies because it gave them a false sense of victory and a place in a new life. The narcissist embraced the new supply's attention because it fed their endless need for validation and adoration. But what they have built together is a partnership in deceit, and it is destined to fall apart. Lies have a short shelf life. They require constant maintenance, more lies to cover the initial lie, and a continuous performance to keep the facade from cracking. This is not a life of peace. It is a life of exhaustion, a life lived in constant fear of exposure and discovery. The very lies they told about you are now being told about them. The distrust they sowed is now the distrust that festers between them. The very chaos they created to destabilize your life is now the chaos that rules their own. They may still post pictures, attend events, and try to convince the world they are happy. But behind the scenes, the cracks are beginning to show. The new supply is realizing that the narcissist is not the prize they thought they were. They are now experiencing the very instability, the emotional coldness, and the cruel manipulation that you once endured. The narcissist, in turn, is realizing that the new supply is just another mirror, another source of validation that will never be enough to fill the void within. Their connection is not one of genuine affection but of shared self-interest. And when that self-interest is no longer served, the entire structure will collapse. A relationship born of betrayal can never produce blessing. It can only produce a harvest of sorrow and mutual resentment. The very foundation they built their lives on is now dissolving beneath their feet. You, in contrast, are now building a life on a foundation of truth. You have nothing to hide. You have no lies to cover. You are free from the burden of deceit. Your future is not a performance, but a genuine progression toward peace. While their house of cards is falling, your foundation is growing stronger, a testament to the fact that you chose integrity over compromise. The great fall of their union is a direct result of their own actions. They believed they could outrun the consequences, but they are now trapped in a cycle of their own making. The betrayal was the first nail in their coffin, and the lies they told to justify it are the subsequent nails. Their downfall is a testament to the fact that you cannot cheat spiritual law. The end of their relationship will not be your doing, but their own, and it will be a final, undeniable proof that a life built on a lie can never stand. It is a slow, methodical, and inevitable unraveling that they cannot stop. Every lie they tell creates a new crack in their foundation, and every day that passes, the storm draws nearer. When the narcissist and the new supply reveled in their betrayal, they likely imagined a moment of your public downfall. They probably hoped you would break down, lash out, and confirm to the world their fabricated story about you. This desire for public validation is a trademark of their ego, a desperate need to justify their cruel actions by seeing you suffer openly. But a higher justice does not work for human entertainment. Their downfall is not for your pleasure, but for your liberation. It is a profound, subtle process that frees you from their influence and proves that your dignity was never a sign of weakness, but a powerful spiritual armor. The Bible reminds us in Luke chapter 6 verse 22, "Blessed are you when people hate you, and when they exclude you and revile you and spurn your name as evil on account of the Son of Man." This is the paradox of spiritual truth. The very thing they did to destroy you has become the instrument of your blessing and freedom. While they may have looked for a public spectacle, the true justice is unfolding in silence. They believed that by discarding you, they had rid themselves of the weight of their choices. But what they did was transfer that burden from you to themselves. You are now free to live, to breathe, to find peace, while they are now shackled to the consequences of their actions. The turmoil they thought they inflicted on you has become their new reality. The confusion they left you in is now their daily companion. They are not falling for your entertainment. They are falling because the weight of their own choices has become too heavy to bear. And as they sink, you are rising. This is the great liberation. You no longer have to carry the emotional burden of their games, their lies, or their constant need for attention. You are free from the toxic cycle of their cruelty. You are no longer tethered to their chaotic energy. The most powerful proof of your liberation is not what happens to them, but what is happening within you. You are healing. You are growing. You are finding a strength you never knew you had. While they are tormented by their past, you are building a future. While they are shackled to a relationship built on deceit, you are free to form genuine, authentic connections with people who truly value you. The paradox is this: their downfall is not an event you need to watch. It is a state of being you can feel. It is the peace in your heart. It is the clarity in your mind. It is the quiet strength in your spirit. Their punishment is not a show for you to watch, but a reality for them to endure. And your liberation is the most powerful testament to its reality. They are not being brought low because you wished it. They are being brought low because the universe demanded a balance. They were not defeated by your actions, but by their own. The liberation you feel is proof that a higher justice is at work, and that your path is now clear. What was meant for your destruction has become your salvation. What was meant to imprison you has set you free. And that is a victory more profound than any public spectacle could ever provide. Their downfall is the final act of your release, the definitive proof that you are now on a new and blessed path. The very actions they believed gave them power have now stripped them of all power. They are living a consequence they can't run from, a spiritual debt that must be paid. Your freedom is a quiet, powerful declaration that the debt has been transferred, and their private hell is the undeniable proof of that transfer. In their minds, the narcissist and the new supply had already planned the grand finale of their story. It was supposed to be a triumph, a permanent victory built on your defeat. They imagined a life of continuous bliss, a testament to their own cleverness and their ability to outsmart a genuine heart. They saw themselves in the final act, standing on a stage of their own making, basking in the spotlight. But they were blind to a deeper truth. The grand finale they envisioned was actually their undoing. The very moment they believed their story was beginning was the very moment their true story came to an end. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." This is a definitive spiritual law. Their pride was not the beginning of a great victory. It was the prologue to their collapse. The narcissist is now living in the quiet hell of a self-inflicted torment. Their need for a grand finale has become a desperate, unending performance with no audience. The new supply, who rushed to join them on this stage, is now trapped in a play they never signed up for. They are both discovering that a life built on betrayal and deceit is not a life of peace, but a life of constant fear. The fear of being exposed. The fear of being found out. The fear that the flimsy foundation of their union will finally give way. They may still be performing for the world, smiling for cameras and posting pictures, but their private reality is one of profound decay. The very triumph they sought has become their tomb. Their final act is not one of glory, but of decline. The energy they once spent on manipulating you, they now must spend on a fruitless battle against their own conscience. The excitement they once had for their new life has been replaced with an annoying sense of emptiness. Their relationship is not a celebration of love, but a partnership in shared guilt. The grand finale they imagined was an illusion, and the truth of their situation is a far harsher reality. They are not moving toward a bright future. They are sinking deeper into the consequences of their past. The end of their story is not a victory lap, but a slow, painful reckoning. You, on the other hand, are no longer a part of their story. Your final act is not a tragic defeat, but a glorious beginning. You have been freed from the drama, the lies, and the constant manipulation. Your story is now one of true peace, genuine connections, and a life built on a solid foundation. While they are living a lie, you are living a truth. Their downfall is the definitive conclusion to their play, and it is a play you are now free from. You do not need to watch the final scenes unfold. You are already in the next chapter of your own life, a chapter marked by peace, and that is a far better ending than they could have ever imagined. Their undoing is a testament to the fact that you cannot orchestrate a victory on the foundation of a lie. The end is not what they planned, and that is the cruelest punishment of all. The world may be blind to the truth of their situation. The narcissist and the new supply may still be able to maintain a public facade, a carefully curated image of happiness and success. They may still post on social media, attend social gatherings, and present themselves as a loving couple who has it all. But this is the final, most hollow layer of their self-deception. What the world does not see is the unseen torment that is now their constant reality. They are living a lie, and the effort to maintain it is exhausting them from the inside out. The Bible says in Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 9, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it?" This sickness of the heart, this deceit, is the very source of their private agony. The world sees the smile, but a higher power sees the sickness of the soul. The torment they endure is internal, a constant war against their own guilt and shame. The narcissist, who once commanded attention, is now losing the internal battle. Every time they are alone, the mirror of shame returns, a relentless reminder of the cruelty they inflicted. The new supply, who thought they had a place of honor, is now a prisoner in a relationship built on sand. They are constantly looking over their shoulder, wondering if they are next to be discarded. They live in a state of paranoia, unable to truly trust the person they are with. The public facade is a performance, a desperate attempt to prove to others and to themselves that they made the right choice. But behind closed doors, the silence is deafening and the emptiness is consuming. This is the great punishment. The world may never know the truth of their downfall, but they are living it every single day. They are haunted by their past, and their future is marked by uncertainty. The money they acquire does not bring them peace. The recognition they receive does not fill the emptiness. The temporary satisfaction they find quickly dissolves into annoying dissatisfaction. The very peace they stole from you is the peace they now crave. The authentic life they betrayed you for is the authentic life they can no longer find. Their suffering is not for public consumption. It is a private agony, a spiritual consequence that is far more punishing than any public shame could ever be. You do not need to read headlines to know that justice is being served. You can feel it in the quiet peace that fills your own heart. Their downfall is not a loud, dramatic spectacle. It is a slow and silent decay. They are not falling from a mountaintop, but sinking into a deep and inescapable pit of their own making. The public may see a facade of triumph, but they are living a reality of profound torment. This is the ultimate justice. They believed they could get away with it, but they are now trapped in a prison of their own minds with no escape. Their downfall is quiet, unseen, and deeply, terribly real. And while they are locked in their own private hell, you are walking in the freedom they can only dream of. At the end of this journey, it is vital to understand the final verdict. The betrayal you endured was a temporary test, but your victory is eternal. The narcissist and the new supply believed they had written your final chapter, a story of defeat and sorrow. But they were only writing a temporary footnote in a grander narrative. The true author of your life story had a different ending in mind, one of vindication, elevation, and lasting peace. The Bible tells us in James chapter 1 verse 12, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." You have remained steadfast. You have stood the test. And now the crown of life is yours. The pain you carried was not in vain. The tears you shed were not for nothing. Your dignity in the face of their cruelty was a powerful testimony that proved your heart was pure and your spirit was true. You did not have to fight for your honor because your honor was already secured by a higher power. You did not have to seek revenge because justice was already in motion. What they meant for your harm, a higher power has used for your ultimate good. And now, as they are living in a self-inflicted prison of shame and torment, you are walking in a freedom they can only dream of. Your peace is your greatest testimony, and their chaos is their greatest punishment. The circle of consequences has closed, and the final scene is not one of their triumph, but of your liberation. And so, as we conclude this message, let your heart be filled not with bitterness for what was lost, but with gratitude for what was found. Be thankful for the lessons learned, for the strength gained, and for the profound, undeniable truth that justice prevails. What they thought was their victory was actually the beginning of their downfall. And what they thought was your end was actually the beginning of a life more blessed than you could have ever imagined. Walk forward in peace, knowing that the past is behind you, the future is bright, and the truth has set you free.